Hello and welcome. I'm Kathy with Waste.Not.Upcycled. I'm a full-time teacher, a part-time reseller, and upcycler. In today's video, Sonnet's December maker box arrived, and I'm going to create 3 upcycled DIY projects with you. Sonnet's maker box arrives every single month with exclusive paper by Rustic decoupage paper and amazing paper by the painted photographer. And she also, what's fun is she also adds in extra surprises. And this month I'm excited to create with the wooden cutouts by CNC DIY Factory. There's paint, we got DIY paint, fuchsia mineral paint, and sweet pickin' milk paint. I cannot wait to create. You know I don't like to waste, so I'm now even using her filler for my crayon projects. For this first project, I'm going to be using a plank that I got off of a dresser. I'll tell you more about that in just a second. But I wanted to use what's called the Heavenly Sign by the painted photographer, and it comes in sets of 3. And I usually use one of these pictures and frame it because her artwork is amazing. I definitely wanted to add dimension to this. It's kind of a shelf sitter, so I'm going to add a wreath to it. So one of the tricks to getting the rice paper to kind of stay best is to mist it. So I mist it and I go ahead and apply my decoupage glue. I'll talk about that glue a little bit later. As you saw, I just do one quick kind of strip of the glue and that helps to manipulate it, and those air bubbles are easier to get out. Now, I'm working with chippy paint, so I thought it would be a little bit trickier, but it went on there really well. The Cardinal being a heavenly sign, I knew I wanted some wording that said something like, "Peace be with you." I thought about hand painting it, I thought about stamping it, but ultimately I went back and dusted off my Cricut and created it online. It's been a while since I've used it, and it reminded me like I've gotten some really great lettering out of it. So I went back. I had to actually remind myself how to use it. That's pretty sad. So I was pretty pleased though with the graphic. I knew I wanted it to be like a cursive print and found the perfect print for it. So while I'm applying this, quick funny story. So this is how I inherited this wooden piece. On Facebook, I saw a free dresser and it was completely chippy and beautiful, like everything I love. After school, one day I drove over to pick up this dresser and the person didn't live there anymore and said they leave it outside. So I pull up by myself and go to grab this dresser, and as I back up into their driveway, I lift it up and the whole thing crumbles into just boards, into pieces. So I didn't want to just leave it there. I took the whole thing, shoved it into my trunk, brought it home thinking, okay, oh, this is just so cute. Someday I'm going to puzzle it back together, glue it. It'll be a really cute chippy dresser, put it into my she shed, and discovered okay, I don't want to waste this. I'm going to go ahead and use it piece by piece. And I am so glad I got this. I have made such great projects. I've used all the drawers and I have so many pieces to work with now. So in hindsight, it turned out to be a great situation. To hold this wreath on, I knew I was going to be using, I love Gorilla, the epoxy, very potent. So you go ahead and mix it together. I mean, this holds metal onto metal. I've used it to fix a coat rack before and it was amazing. Very strong smelling and very potent, but I like to use Q-tips with it, mix it, and I'm going to go ahead and put it onto all of those edges that are going to connect with the wood. After you use this glue, you can use actual clamps to hold it into place. What I did is I let it sit overnight, and I actually like put a book on top of it to give it some pressure and make sure it was sealing. And it was stuck. It wasn't going anywhere after that. Project 2, I found a metal tin and I am using Bayberry Fusion Mineral Paint. I like to use like old candle lids to hold my paint. So after I wipe it down, I ended up putting 2 coats of paint onto this. And it goes on. I love Fusion paint. I truly have just started using it with my projects, and I'm absolutely loving it. I love how the pigment is so strong. So this project, I went through, I painted 1 coat in and out all the cracks and crevices, let it sort of sit overnight, and then I'm going to come back and give it a 2nd coat. So as I said, this was a metal tin meant for planting or meant for plants. I got it from Goodwill. I think it was half price, maybe $2.50. So I am painting like every crack and crevice. The inside I'm going to paint it up until like the midpoint, but not the inside bottom. I do paint the bottom of it. I had a little bit of leftover paint. But I know I'm going to be adding greens to it, so I'm not worried about the inside bottom because that's going to be completely covered. Loving this color. So I'm going to go ahead and add on the Rustic Pine Cone designed by Upcycled decoupage paper. And I originally wanted all of it to cover it, but I want that color to pop through. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. I'm measuring it right now. And instead of cutting out the section that I want, I'm gonna just use a paintbrush with water and trace it out. What this does is it gives it like that rougher edge, which I love. So it gives you a line, and I'm just gonna trace around it. All of that extra paper I'm gonna be saving for another DIY that I'm gonna be doing. So I tear it out, and it gives it kind of like a rougher edge instead of a clean cut edge that you would get with scissors. So I really like that green paint popping through as well on the side. And I'm gonna keep it this way. Like, this is perfect. I was gonna originally like go ahead and like sand the paint, but I loved how strong this paint is. I think it's a great match. And here you see me cutting out around where that handle is. And I'm using the same method, but you'll realize I kind of fumble with this the way I started out. I go ahead and I spray. I quickly mist my paper to make it easier to manage. And then as I'm putting it on, like this is kind of crazy. So I had to start kind of over, and I thought it would be easier to start with the edge. So I'm gonna go ahead and glue, once again, my starter point. So as I'm gluing down this beautiful paper, I'm thinking about all the fun stuff I'm gonna stuff into this planter. I usually have quite an arsenal of greenery that I get from resale stores to use for the holidays, but I'm kind of depleted. So what I think I'm gonna be using is from the leftovers from my Christmas tree. And now what I'll have to do is I'm gonna be saving this project. I'm gonna be keeping this. So I will have my greenery from my Christmas tree. I'll be using the reds, my berries, and then I have pine cones. After it dried, I'm gonna go ahead and start putting everything in. What you didn't see me do is I did glue in 2 of those green foam for faux planters. So I hot glued that down to the bottom. And here I am just arranging all of my different greens and making sure they're sticking into that foam. Since I'm actually keeping this project and I'm using some live branches from my tree, what'll happen is at the end of the season, I'm gonna pop those out, and then next year, once I get some faux, like some great greenery, I'll be able to put that in, and I'll make the decision whether or not I wanna sell this in my booth or hold on to it. And I did the same thing. I added in all the berries, and I really loved on this paper, I loved the pine cones, and I have a ton of pine cones. So I wanted those to pop out by using actual pine cones throughout the project. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tuck in pine cones that are sticking out throughout this whole project. So they just kind of pop out. I'm gonna do it in the front, and I'm gonna do it in the back. Colors in this project truly make me happy, like for the winter month. I absolutely am so happy with how this project turned out. Project number 3. When I saw the silhouette decoupage paper and the awesome wooden cutout by CNC DIY Factory, I knew right away what I was gonna do. I wanted to create a functional piece, and I'm holding on to this one as well. So I had gotten a kind of like a hat box from Goodwill. It was 99 cents. And I have been holding on to old photographs, like tons and tons of photographs of my boys and my family and so on. And I wanted to create a piece that can house those. Each boy is going to be getting a box later on as they like kind of leave the nest. So here you see me painting the wooden cutouts. So I'm going to paint these different pieces, and this is a big, a lot of steps in this project. It definitely took me a couple days because I wanted to layer different parts to this. So the first part, I went ahead and I took the DIY paint, the White Swan, mixed it a little bit with water, and I wanted to just take the cardboard look to it and get rid of that cardboard look. And so I'm first putting kind of a base coat, and I'm just going over the whole piece, and I'm not painting in the same direction. I really want it to look all different and have a texture to it. So I painted it, I rubbed it with my craft towel, and I did this throughout the whole thing, let it sit overnight and let it dry. Did the same process to the top of the box as well. I did not paint the bottom of the box. I did love like kind of those polka dots, so I wanted those to pop through, and you'll see I'm going to be adding another layer of paint to this a little bit later. Time to add on these amazing silhouettes. I went ahead and I just cut out all of these, and I'm going to use the same process I used earlier, where I'm going to take the water and I'm going to go around the edges and kind of give it that vintagey look is what I'm going for. So I did the same process for all of these silhouettes and just for every single one of them. And I'm really hoping that Sonnet has some leftover, because one of the benefits to being a subscriber to her maker boxes, these are exclusive papers. And if she has leftovers, then you can go ahead and order some, and then they'll come in your next maker box. So I am hoping to do that and create, all of the boxes for my boys using the same paper. Now, I've been using this same decoupage glue, and I'm ready to be done with it. It's not my favorite at all, but I want to use it up. So I mix it with water until I feel comfortable with it. And I did it with all the projects in this video. And I'm going to go ahead and apply, just like I did with all of my decoupage. I'm going to mist all my papers and apply all of them in the same process I did, where I mist them. I'm going to find my starting point and glue it down, and then work it through and then layer over it with my glue. Do you see how the bottom of that paper is, or the bottom of the box is kind of like open? This is where I kind of pivot in my craft, in my activity. I realized like when I added it, it already was falling apart a little bit, but when I added that water and paint, it made it unseal more. So I kind of take a break from my decoupaging, and this is where I'm gonna hot glue the bottom of it to make sure that it's sealed. And I go through and just kind of reinforce it. I do not want to abandon this hat box. I loved it. I just kind of sealed it up and then continue on with decoupaging. Time to add the silhouettes to the top, and I had 3 silhouettes left. Like that was the perfect amount that was going to fit. This was a perfect project. Now I let this dry overnight, and I knew that I wanted to add some more texture to it, and I wanted to add a little bit more of a brown to it. So I actually took paint from Sonnet's November box, and I used her White Swan DIY and mix that together. And I'm gonna go in, and I decided, again, I want it to not have that perfect look to it. It's gonna look old and vintagey. And I painted like all over. I used my towel. I wanted to paint kind of like over the decoupage, and just, again, I want it to blend all together and have that old look. I did the same thing throughout the side, and again, you'll notice like I'm just going all over, all different directions, trying to give it texture. And that's a wrap for the painting part of it. I have one more amazing piece to add. Remember that wooden piece that was created? I think I'm gonna add that to the front of it. I felt like it was a little too clean cut, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use the coal black fusion mineral paint that came at Sonnet's box, and I'm just gonna do a quick little outline around it. And I actually have to admit, like I had to cut out because I'm kind of clumsy, and I actually bumped my paint over and had to like start back over. So I went ahead and I'm painting that, and then I decided to sand everything up. So it's kind of has that old look. I'm sanding the silhouette, I'm sanding the wooden piece, and I'm gonna glue it all together with my hot glue gun and stick it right on the front to give it a pop. So this turned out really well. I added my pictures to it, and I have to admit, once I added those pictures to it, my boys were sitting around and they spent a good 20 minutes looking through pictures. So here they are. It's gonna be such a great place to keep all my photos that are treasures. And it's so hard to believe that my boys are actually in this picture 24, almost 22. And this one, he's almost gonna be 20. How did that happen? But I'm excited to have this place to store all of my photos. So here are the 3 projects I created with Sonnet's December Maker Box. I'm excited to be creating more. I have so many leftover items and lots of ideas in store. So thanks for taking the time to watch all of my projects. I'm definitely curious what your favorite project was. Leave a comment down below. And if you're not a subscriber yet, I would appreciate if you'd hit that subscribe button and follow along on my creative journey. Have a great day.